Two thank yous and a question. Thank you so much for the bold position you have taken on Gaza. And if anybody hasn't seen the statement you put out on X, formerly known as Twitter, it's amazing. I want to thank you, and I want to let you know that we delivered it to Senators Murray and Cantwell's office the other day, because they still will not take a position on this issue or have a town hall or respond to constituent questions on the topic. So thank you for being a leader on this. And thank you for also mentioning Ukraine, because that's our other thing. We want both a ceasefire in Gaza, but we also want continuing aid for Ukraine, and we think those positions are consistent. Both are trying to save the lives of innocent civilians. So thank you for seeing the simplicity in saying that all these human, innocent lives are equal, and we should be protecting all of them. So my question, real quick, is how do we achieve getting more funding to continue our responsibility in Ukraine, without funding a bunch more 2,000-pound bombs going to Israel to drop on Gaza? Because Congress is tying these together, so how do we accomplish that?
Thank you. First of all, Tina, thank you for your work. Thank you to Indivisible. You've been such incredible partners on so many issues and engaging the community here locally and nationally. This is the really tough part, because aid to Ukraine is specifically something that Republicans have said they're not voting for. And so Speaker Johnson has the ability to control whether a bill comes to the floor or not. And I really don't know how to answer that question. I will vote for Ukraine as a standalone bill. Now, if it's tied to bad border provisions, which Mitch McConnell seems to be walking away from today after he was for it, and now he's against it because Trump is against it, that will be, I can't vote for bad border provisions. If it's tied to additional aid for Israel, I'm also going to have a real challenge, because I believe that Israel should follow international humanitarian laws, and that there should, at a minimum, be conditions on aid that we are giving that they have to meet, and that we should continue to fund defensive aid, that's like the Iron Dome that protects Israelis, but offensive military aid. The majority of bombs that have been dropped in Gaza, experts have analyzed the shrapnel, they come from the United States. They come from the United States. So we do have to be very thoughtful about how this goes forward, and I don't know the answer to your question, because we can't get these, they're not right at this moment, they're not separating them out. And hopefully they will, and hopefully Ukraine will come to the floor as a separate package, and we'll be able to vote for it, because it is really, really important to support Ukrainian civilians and to try to get, again, to a diplomatic peace in Ukraine as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And if we can help, let us know.
Yeah.
And you don't feel alone, because we have your back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello. Congresswoman, I'm Peter Gould from the Gatewood neighborhood. I'm an advocate in the Alzheimer's movement because of my mother-in-law, Margaret. We lost her in 1990 after a 10-year struggle with this horrible, horrible disease that is afflicting 140,000 Washingtonians, and they're being cared for by over 300,000 family caregivers. You have been terrific in the state Senate and in the Congress in supporting Alzheimer's national plan, which creates and identifies the opportunity for scientists to tell Congress directly what is needed in order to find treatment and a cure. So I want to say thank you for co-sponsoring the extension of that national plan. It's so important to us, and bringing hope to thousands of families. So thank you very much.
Peter, you've been an incredible advocate. Thank you so much for your work on this. I think we all are dealing, particularly as we get up in the years, our own parents are dealing with this. I know I've talked to you about my own family, and appreciate your sharing your story. And this is just such an important issue. And so I will do everything I can to continue to advocate for resources, for research, for care, for support, all of those things. I'm very grateful for your work.
Hi, I'm Aya. I'm 11 years old. I was wondering why there's a lot of older people here. soon to be 12-year-old.
I love it. We're gonna take that video and make it into an ad. So awesome. I love it. I love it when young people get up and are here and ask questions, and it happens at every one of our town halls. And all I can say to you, Maya, is we need you. We need people like you to talk to your friends about why you're interested and why they should be interested and how the decisions that are being made right now are going to affect your life. When you graduate from high school, if you go to college, whatever you do, these decisions we're making right now are going to be with you for the rest of your life. And I want you to have the right to make choices about your own bodies. I want you to be able to have the right to vote. I want you to have a great life and care and, take care of your parents and all the things that anybody should have. So bring your friends next time. So principle number 1 of organizing is 1 person is great, 10 are better, 100 is fabulous. So bring your friends, talk to your friends. I'll come do a youth town hall with you if you want. Because you totally inspired me. Thank you, Maya.
Hi, thank you. My name is John Shabazian, and this is actually the first town hall I've been to.
Give it up for John.
Thank you. So I know this topic is a little strange, but for the past year, I've been watching Congress work through, investigations on UAPs. And I'm not sure if any of that's true. But one, if it is, obviously that would be, changing for entire society. But also, if it's not true, I feel like there's a huge amount of money being spent on these programs, tens of millions, maybe billions of dollars being put into the programs themselves for potentially nothing, being abused without, national security, putting labels of national security on it. So I'd really just like for you to support any legislation going through, and perhaps, throw your support behind any of the members of the UAP caucus that are trying to find out more information.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, John. I saw that you had put this on your list of questions when I was looking through. And so I actually went back to look at, what bills are there and where are we. And so in July of 23, the House Oversight and Accountability Subcommittee on National Security, Border and Foreign Affairs had a hearing on UAPs, as you probably know. And during the hearing, there were 2 military officers who testified about their experiences with UAPs that they had personally seen. There was a third who claimed to have been informed of a government UAP retrieval program, which DOD denied in a statement. And the 24 National Defense Authorization Act included a whole bunch of major provisions from Senator Schumer's UAP disclosure bill. And so I will continue to stay focused on this and look at, exactly what's happening. I have co-sponsored the Protecting Our Democracy Act, which does increase measures to protect the anonymity of whistleblowers, because I think this is another really important piece of the puzzle. But thank you for your interest. It made me go back and look at what we've actually done on UAPs, because there's so much that we deal with in Congress, and sometimes when you come to me with something, I have to go check it out. So appreciate that very much.
Would you define that acronym?
What's that?
What did you define the acronym?
UFOs.
Oh, UAPs is unidentified aerial phenomenon. Just like the call earmarks to the projects.
I have a little serious problem myself. I really appreciate your fighting for the surveillance issue and the Pfizer. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, thank you. And many innocent Muslim people are listed in watch list in terrorist screening database. Like most Muslim people, I believe that I am included in this watch list, even though I came from Japan. But I went to North Korean Communist School in Japan. And I wonder, you are aware or not, The New York Times 2021 article reported this way. Heavy urban and idealistic FBI agent grew so disillusioned by the war on terror that he leaked classified documents to the Intercept, and he received a 4-year sentence in the federal prison during Trump presidency. Long story short, FBI has given agents the power to ruin the life of completely innocent people based on only solely on what part of the world they came from, or what religion they practice, or color of the skin. Or I want only one example. He already described one case this way. X was screwed for life. There was nothing connection to the terrorism. Already spent months completing process known as the baseline collection, scoring his social media, checking his phone record, running his name through the.
Ma'am, let me do this. I have a lot of concerns with the terrorist watch list because right after 9/11, when I started my work on immigrant rights, there were a number of Muslims, Arab Americans, Sikh Americans who were put on watch lists incorrectly. If I can have you connect with my team, and we will look at your case and see what we can do to help you.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you so much.
Ms. Jayapal, thank you for your work. My question to you is related to healthcare. I'm an entrepreneur, business owner in the area, and I have a family of 3. And I have been on a health cost sharing program for quite a long time, and I would rather have something through the ACA, which has helped so many people. But I feel like there is a middle ground that is not being served as well. And for as an example, I had an S corp, so revenue of the company goes on to the tax return. This year has been really tough, but my money goes to my payroll, a lot of employees, a lot of expenses in that. So my question to you really is, can you give any thought or any advice to those who might feel like they're in between the two? Because everything on the ACA that I've looked at is catastrophic for us. And it's either pay what's equivalent to a mortgage for something that's not $10,000 deductible a year. I'm wondering if you can help out with that.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this question. It's why I have been fighting for universal health care, because one of the places that gets most screwed, excuse my language, by our current healthcare system is small businesses. And, because what's happening is first of all, you're competing with other countries in Europe and elsewhere where healthcare is provided by the government. You have to put it on your balance sheet. And what's happening now is there's a whole Businesses for Medicare Advantage group that's started nationally, because what's now happening is, look, the ACA was good in that it helped a lot of people. But the prices for the ACA, because it's all private insurance companies, those prices have been going up. I'll just give you an example. For me in Congress, we're on the ACA because when we passed the ACA, they didn't want to put us on federal health care. They wanted us to have the same health care as you, so that we would feel the same pain or joy as you. And so my health care premium for me and my husband went from $600 when I came in 7 years ago to $1,900 a month. That's what I'm paying for healthcare. And so we are subsidizing the profits of these private insurance companies. We could provide all of this much cheaper. Businesses could pay just a small fraction of what you pay right now for your healthcare, for your employees' healthcare, and you would be competitive. And yes, there would be a tax, but it would be tiny compared to the amount that you pay. And some of these businesses have come to me and said, not only are we want to be good employers, we're providing healthcare to our employees, but they're not even getting healthcare. They're not getting their needs covered. And so we're now funding GoFundMe campaigns when they get sick because nothing's getting covered. So I can promise you we're working on this, but we need business as well, people like you, entrepreneurs, to come together and say, we need a different system, because people also aren't going out to start small businesses, to be entrepreneurs, because they know they need their health care and it's tied to employers right now. So I don't have an answer for you, but I have empathy for what you're saying, and it is a common story in terms of the things that people are facing. So work with me, let's figure out how we can lift up your story. I'm happy to connect you to others who are in the same position as you And I think this is why we have to have a single-payer government, insurance plan. The services could still be provided by our current doctors and hospitals, but we would actually be able to have comprehensive care, just like we do with Medicare. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Kelly Lamaka. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm an immigration attorney, and I work with children. I'm here to ask you about the current threats to humanitarian parole. It sounds like it shifted a little bit just today. So my questions are, first of all, what are the current politics of it? Is it actually a threat? I mean, is it being threatened? Secondly, I work with children. Does that threat include special infant juvenile status? And then thirdly, is there any hope at all of getting, I know the answer, is there any hope of getting the asylum system moving again?
Yeah. No, first of all, thank you. Give her a hand all the way. So appreciate it. Okay, where the White House, Jeff Zients, the chief of staff of the White House, told me directly they were not going to make changes to parole. They were not going to give up the president's parole authority. Then they started talking about changes to parole. I told him that this is the only thing that's worked on the border. When Donald Trump took away the ability for people from the Congo to apply to come to the United States, they all started showing up on the border. And when Joe Biden passed parole for the CHNP countries, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela. I have to think about Nicaragua. When he passed parole for those 4 countries, entries at the border from those 4 countries dropped by 99% because people were able to apply in their home countries and come in on parole, and it was a whole different ballgame. And so they promised me that they were not going to take away that authority. What they negotiated is unclear because none of us have seen the text. My understanding is that it is not the authority to give parole, but it has something to do with taking away the ability to enter at the borders on parole. So in other words, you'd be able to fly into an airport but not apply at the border, which is just ridiculous. For anybody who knows immigration law, most of these things are ridiculous. They won't solve the problem, and they're just going to create more chaos. Mitch McConnell today said the politics of this have changed. Donald Trump wants to leave immigration out there as an issue, so we're not sure we can pass this bill. So we may be saved from bad border policy by Republicans that want to keep immigration out there as a problem. What can we do on speeding up the asylum system? There is money in the president's supplemental budget, which I don't think we're going to get now, to hire more asylum processing officers and to hire more immigration judges, which you know what a difference that would all make. But I don't know that we're going to get that money now. And this is why, if we want to take immigration off the table as a political, just bludgeoning tool that Republicans use on us, we need to get rid of the filibuster and pass serious, comprehensive, humane immigration reform.
My name is Bert McLaughlin. I'm a constituent here in West Seattle. And the question I have for you is in relation to the upcoming election. I know myself, as I'm sure plenty of you are really scared of the next election. It's going to happen. For myself, I'm part of the trans community, so the thought of the Republican Party coming into office and their probably 2025 happening is really scary. But on the other hand, I'm watching the current president support genocide, like in every single way support genocide. And so I would honestly give up all my trans rights if this genocide would stop. I watch most videos of kids taking what looks like ground beef, taking it and putting it in a bag, or taking it and putting it in their parents' body bag. And I cannot vote for a president who's going to allow that. So my question to you is, what are you doing about that? What is the party doing about that? When is this going to stop? Because this is not okay. My tax dollars are going towards this genocide.
Yes.
about it, I'm using my voice and my platform to call as courageously as I can.
Barely.
For an end to this.
You barely are. You're doing the bare minimum. Like,
Well, I
you
appreciate
are
that you-
bare minimum.
I appreciate that you think that, but there is not another member of Congress in the state who has called for a ceasefire. There isn't another member in Congress who's been attacked over and over again for calling for a ceasefire. And I'm going to continue to do that. Some of the work I do behind the scenes. I've had numerous conversations with the State Department, with the President's Chief of Staff, with others, and I will continue to do that. I think we have to keep up the movement for a ceasefire and for peace. That's what I think. And I think we have to understand that look, I am not going to allow for Donald Trump to come back into the White House. I'm not going to do it. And this is what I think the reason we lost in 2016 is because we didn't put a coalition together that took care of young people, that took care of people of color, immigrants, didn't recognize our base. And the reason we won in 2020 is because we had Biden-Sanders unity task forces. I chaired the one on healthcare. We put together a coalition of immigrants, of people of color, of young people across the country in swing states like Georgia, Arizona, others. And I have been saying to the White House over and over again that we need to start paying attention to our base, we need to pay attention to our values, and I'm just going to continue to do that. And we have to turn out and vote in November because we cannot afford to have our democracy ruined. To make that choice as many people as I can, and we're just going to have to keep fighting. And I appreciate your care and compassion. And you should not be giving up your trans rights ever for anything. We all deserve rights, and I'm going to fight for you as well. And for all of our trans folks across the country. And this is a painful time. So I want to thank you for speaking out. I want to thank you for your anger. And I want to encourage you to keep building the movement for peace. That is what we have to do.
Hello, my name is Stefan Krasost. I recently moved to Seattle May of last year. So I was going to ask a question, but I think I'll kind of make a comment about kind of the last question that was asked. Biden right now, he's losing support from young people and Muslim Americans on the genocide happening in Gaza. So what I quickly want to say is that if he wants to gain any support back to defeat Donald Trump, which most likely he's going to be his opponent, I would suggest to Biden that he should stop sending weapons to the Israeli government to force them into accomplishing a peace agreement.
Yes.
We are the largest backer of military aid to Israel. And to say that we have no leverage is really not accurate. I understand that the White House's position is that they feel like they've been able to move Israel towards slightly better positions. I think it's been minimal. I think it's been minimal. And I think that we have to use all of our leverage. And that's why I have said that we should not give aid to a country that refuses to follow international humanitarian law.
My name is Ruby, and I want to start out with thanking you for all the work that you've done. It's amazing and it's inspiring. And I just also want to say I'm not a soon-to-be 12-year-old. I was wondering what your most, or what you would say is the most effective way of communicating, as a colleague to other politicians or other people in decision-making situations, and how you can kind of make them see through the reports and data that you already kind of have on it, and how you can kind of open that conversation, because you talk about, having different views than other individuals that you work with. So I was curious how you do that, and then also what we could do for getting housing as a human right onto
That's my bill.
Yeah.
Awesome, human right.
Awesome, great.
Yes.
I'm happy to hear that. So then never mind on that question. Last thing I guess would just be yeah, what do you feel on the criminalization of homelessness or people just in general? Like how we can change that?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Those are deep questions. All of them. Housing is Human Right is my bill. I introduced it last year with a huge coalition of groups that work on housing and homelessness, and it's a really comprehensive bill. So take a look at it if you haven't seen it already. Encourage others to sign on, other members of Congress. I believe that we cannot criminalize houselessness. I mean, I just believe it's wrong. And so in the bill, we actually have a stance on that, and the federal resources and dollars that we give would not be able to go to jurisdictions that criminalize people. We need to build more housing. We need to invest in housing. One of the reasons I was pushing so hard on Build Back Better is because it had a $150 billion investment in housing. That would have been the largest federal investment in housing ever. And we need that affordable housing. We need shelters. We need long-term supports and services, long-term supportive housing. We know how to do it. We've had some really great models. And so I think that's the work we have to do. On the question of how you talk to people, look, I try to listen to what people have to say. I try to respond to the concerns and start where they are. I do bring research, but I also find that stories are really compelling. And I find that for my colleagues, probably one of the most compelling things is people in their district. So organizing people in people's districts to speak out and to go and talk to people about their own stories, talk to their members of Congress about their own stories, it really, really matters. So it is both an inside game and an outside game, if you would, to be able to get people to come around. And you can see it with Medicare for All. You know, when I introduced the bill first, my first term in Congress, and today we have over half of the Democratic caucus on there, but it has been a one-by-one, conversation. Sometimes, Hakeem Jeffries, our minority leader, said to me, Camilla, you're like water on a rock. You just erode it away. It's just conversation after conversation. But it's also listening and trying to address the issues that people have. Thank you so much for your question.
Good evening, Camilla. I'm Sri Prabhu. Namaskar. I'm a congressman. And ladies and gentlemen, my vote is my voice. My vote is my choice. We are democratic family. My question is not what. My question and expectation 2026 is a human rights. I work in the neighborhood house. Thank you so much. You visited my classroom 19. And also thank you for food bank, which one you said West Seattle food bank is the most dedicated people are. Thank you so much, West Seattle people. But still, we need to see more contribution and need to be open another center. Because when I walk into the work, every day I see when they open 11 o'clock, but the people line up for 8 o'clock. It's hard my churching, please, if you go to 26 again, or still have a time to make the another center by the West Seattle. Also, the another thing is the price for grocery is so high. As essential worker, I cannot reach that amount too. And thank you so much. You pull out the $50 will be one day. We wait for the $50 essential worker minimum wage in the Seattle and food bank. Please, the one knowledge just for the federal funded supplementaries disclose last March. If they give you again back to them, lot of families will be helped because they have no food sticker in the table. I work in the low-income families every day and immigration and refugee. Please, I want to be back the federal funded supplementary. It will be helpful. Thanks so much.
All of your work, and you're absolutely right. That is exactly, we need to continue all of that funding with supplemental funding that is helping people to eat. This never used to be, it was not a controversial thing to give food to low-income women and children there are so many hungry people in this country. And it's stunning to me every time I go to a food bank and I see the line stretching around the block for people who need some help with food. That is, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that is the first thing you need. You need to have food. So thank you so much for all of your work on that.
Hi, Congresswoman. First of all, thank you for having this. One of the big problems I see with Congress is these politicians who make it a permanent lifetime thing. And a large number of Americans think that term limits are necessary to keep Congress in check. What do you think about that?
You know, my husband and I argue about this all the time because I agree. I agree. When I became chair of the Progressive Caucus, Bernie Sanders had been chair for a long time. He started it. Others had been chairs a long. There were never term limits, and I put in term limits on the chairmanship because I think that it's great when we get to lead something, but it's important to also step aside and have new leaders come in. And what happens in Congress is because everybody sticks around for so long, it takes like 25 years to become the chair or ranking member of a committee. And I remember when I was running for office, one of the people running in the race as well, one of my opponents, said, well, you should really elect me because she's too old. It's going to take 20 years for her to become, for her to become the chair. And I was like, no, it won't. But it's not wrong. The Republicans have term limits at least on chairmanships, right? So you can only be a chair of a committee X number of times. I forget if it's 3 terms or what it is, 4 terms. And so that enables people to say, okay, well, if I'm not going to be chair, then I'm just going to be a regular member, and maybe I don't want to stick around so much. So actually, they do have more people that rotate through, more so than we Democrats do. So this has been an ongoing conversation. I think it does take a while to get to know how to do this job. But listen, even if you had 16 years or 20-year term limits, you could still have a big shake-up in Congress, and you could help bring in new generations that reflect the energy of the country and reflect diverse populations. I have people all over the country, anywhere I go, saying to me, you know what, you being there has changed how I think about the possibilities for my life, right? Because I see a woman of color there, I see an immigrant, I see a South Asian, whatever it is they see. And so I can think differently about my own possibilities. And I think that's what we want, right? We want more people who represent lots of different communities and different views and perspectives. But it's not going to happen if people hold on to power. I am here because you put me here. And I have always told people that I am not interested in the title. I think about what I want to do, not who I want to be. I think about what is it that I can get done. And the minute I stop feeling like I can get something done, or if I feel like it's just been too long and somebody else needs to come in, I'm going to step aside because I've got a beautiful family, lovely things that I can do with my life, but it's an honor of a lifetime to serve. So, I think we should have a real discussion.
Hi, I'm Amy Gilavi-Seguin. I'm from Lower Queen Anne, and I'm a member of the Debt Collective, a nationwide coalition of student debtors. So I graduated college as a first-generation college student, a first generation to grow up in the States. My family are Southeast Asian refugees from a different American-funded genocide, and I wanted to understand your commitment to student debt relief. We saw your statement in August of last year alongside with Senator Warren, and the debt relief under the Biden administration so far has not been enough. Our generation, my generation, has elected Obama, and we feel let down and betrayed. So with our faith in democracy at stake, I wanted to understand what you will commit to on this issue in 2024, given that borrowers tend to student debt disproportionately affects women, people of color, and women of color.
Yeah, thank you so much. We do tons of work with them. The reason we have student debt cancellation is because the Progressive Caucus made it a priority under my leadership and under other folks in the Progressive Caucus leadership, and we worked with the debt collective and the movement to get student debt canceled. Unfortunately, it got held up in the courts. And so what we're trying to do is everything we can to create programs that address student debt. I also have the College for All bill, which would make education free for everybody, tuition free and in our future. And the fact that students have debt is forcing people to choose between getting a higher education and being mired in debt. And it's hurting our economy. If we take away that debt, it means that people can use their resources to invest in apartments and cars and other stuff. It flows right back into the economy. So, and we know that the disproportionate effect falls on folks of color and other low-income communities. So I'm going to keep working on it. I mean, we've led the movement in Congress, so we're still committed to that. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that happens.
And we met when I was on the Leadership Council for Washington. I guess my question is on the healthcare for all. Why does Congress, or why don't they look at the EU plan? Because in the EU, basically healthcare and education is a human right. And actually, my nephew is with the United Nations on assignment in New York right now, and he's on the HR for diversity and inclusion. So I get inspired by him. So why do we have to reinvent the wheel? Why can we look at what's done forever in the EU?
Yeah. Well, the answer is that the United States had a system that we put in place that gave a lot of money and profit to a group of people. Those people don't want to give it up. Private insurance companies, the for-profit entities that make money, that make profit off of people's pain. And it's very hard to dismantle that. For every member of Congress, I think it's something like 250 lobbyists from the private insurance industry that are outside the doors. I don't take any corporate PAC money. My campaigns are funded entirely by people, not by PACs, so they don't come from my that is the issue. And so every time we try to move in this direction, we get this massive pushback from the private companies that are profiting from the healthcare system. When I was in Germany, I led a delegation to Germany last year, and they said to me, "No, Congresswoman Jayapal, everybody says you're such a progressive, but if you came here to Europe, you'd just be a centrist." They were like, "You fight for universal healthcare, universal education, all these things." He goes, "That's just what we believe has to happen." And so I share your frustration because they try to make it seem like it's a far left perspective. And sometimes people try to compare the quote far left, they're talking about progressives, to the far right. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. The far left, so to speak, which is really centrist anywhere else in the world, is fighting for people to have health care and people to have education and people to have food and people to have jobs that pay them enough, So I share your frustration. All I can tell you is it's a very entrenched system. And the only thing that takes on that power is the people. And that's why we got to build a big movement and force a change so that we can get universal health care.
Hi, I'm Clara from West Seattle, and I'm glad that our government is taking the recent Boeing incident seriously. But every day people are walking, biking, and driving and getting injured and killed by cars. Just recently in my neighborhood, Stephen Holzman, a bike rider, was killed, and in a separate incident a few weeks later, someone was hit on West Marginal Way. I'm hopeful that we'll see local action, but local action can't fix a nationwide issue, and we can't keep blaming people for design issues. Cars like SUVs have been designed bigger and have been scientifically proven to be dangerous to pedestrians, bikers, and have incompatible car collisions. What sort of actions can you do to address this systemic issue?
Yeah, thank you so much. We have been focused on this, and we did put some money into this issue. I think Seattle received about 25 million from DOT Safe Streets program. It was a grant funding program that was specifically designed to support the infrastructure for safer streets. I'm also a co-sponsor of the Zero Traffic Fatalities Resolution, which commits the federal government to having zero roadway fatalities by 2050. And the reason it's that comprehensive is because you're kind of talking about all the different ways in which we need to think about safety on the streets, right? It's the cars, it's the curbs, it's the sidewalks, it's all of these different pieces. And so that resolution is saying, let's have a comprehensive review to it. I also signed a letter to the Department of Transportation supporting pedestrian and cycle safety measures as key criteria for vehicle safety ramps, because this is another big issue that we've seen a lot on. And then we had a Washington and Oregon delegation letter to DOT that was supporting I-5's bridge replacement program, and really thinking about how do we build in safety, pedestrian safety, as well as overall safety on the road. So it is a big problem, and I also think as we move to transit, this is a really important way to reduce traffic on the streets, address climate, and address safety.
You're doing a great job. I'm a lefty from England, basically. Exciting now. I lived in Israel 40 years ago. I lived up on the Lebanese border when Israel invaded. I lived down in the Sinai when it was occupied Egypt. I have a real big problem. Really, I feel so strong about the genocide in the country, what's happening right now. I voted Democrat for the last 40 years. New America, 40 years. I'm a union member, typical working class type of guy. But I have a super big problem right now voting for him. Could you please tell me how you would convince me to vote for him? Bill, Mr. President Biden stated that he is a Zionist Catholic. How can I vote for him? My views about it are so strong. I've never been that strong. But please convince me, why should I vote for Biden?
Well, I'd rather convince you in a few months when we have been able to stop this horrific war in Gaza. And that's really what I'm focused on, because I too feel the morality of this. And what I have said to the White House Chief of Staff, to others at the top levels of the Biden administration, is I can convince people that we didn't get everything done that we wanted to get done with Inflation Reduction Act, that we need to work on childcare and housing and all of these things. And I can convince people about why it's important to still vote, even though you're disappointed, even though you may be disappointed that we didn't get everything done. I can tell them about the great things we've been able to do. I cannot make a moral argument about what we are doing in Gaza, what America is doing in Gaza. And my argument to you is that at the end of the day, we have to, not everything the president does I'm in agreement with. I'm sure you've seen that. I've spoken out, you and I are good friends, but I've spoken out about a lot of things. I've been trying to get a meeting specifically on this issue. I haven't gotten it yet. But what I would say to you is that we are in a space right now where the threats against our democracy are so real. I mean, I almost lost my life on January 6th. I almost lost my life on January 6th. I didn't think I was coming into a job to defend our democracy literally with my body and insurrectionists outside, trying to get in and stop our democracy from functioning. And if you think that what's happening now in Gaza is horrific, imagine what is going to happen when Donald Trump gets into the White House. I am not saying that you have to love 100% of what Joe Biden does. I don't. But I am saying that we are going to be faced with a choice. And I'm not stopping trying to do everything I can to stop this horrific war in Gaza right now. But we have to understand that we are in one of the most fragile times that the world has ever seen. And it isn't just the United States. It isn't just immigrants, babies being separated from families, but the retaliation and the retribution of a dictator coming into the White House, or even what's going to happen in the rest of the world. I mean, we've spent the last 3 years trying to build back up a coalition. And now I feel the hypocrisy of what's happening in Gaza versus how we treated Ukraine, for example. But I still have to say to you and to everyone out there, this is not a joke. What's happening in Gaza is not a joke. What happens if Trump gets into the White House is really not a joke. And we're just going to have to keep our movement strong and recognize that the most important things that are always to be done are never easy. They're not done because they're not easy. And moving foreign policy in this country away from war and towards peace and diplomacy is a lifetime project. And so I don't know if I've convinced you. I want to have more action on the ground to say we've made a change. But just think about it, consider it, and let's keep talking over the next 7 months.
But if you remember 3 years ago, we finally said that now we have the adults in the room. Since then, we have the Ukraine war, we've got the
Yeah.
war.
I mean, I'm not arguing with any of that. I'm just saying at the end of the day, we're going to let's keep having the conversation. Don't step away from democracy. Have the conversation. Let's make our choices. We've got another 9 months to go. Hopefully we're going to be able to make some changes, and let's keep pushing forward, putting our hands on the moral arc of the universe. Rachel tells me we have 5 minutes, so we're going to take, how many can we take, Rachel? Are we just going to take several?
Go on as much as we can.
Okay.
Hi there, Sandra. Thank you for your service. I saw you on January 6th. I worried about you. Our government is a little too male, pale, and stale. Also, I need to know what the dollar amount in billions is to Israel in cash and in kind, in weapons. I need to know that either tonight or I will get in touch with your staff because
I have that number for you.
I'm disgusted by it.
We'll get it.
All right, the other thing I need to know is why AIPAC is allowed to walk the halls of the United States Capitol and Congress and lobby for the support and basically threaten. I've heard of threats for legislators. They're afraid to stand up to AIPAC because they won't get funding or AIPAC will fund an opponent. This to me is disgusting. This is not democracy. That's a form of terrorism.
Look, AIPAC is dark money that funds insurrectionists being able to stay in Congress. They fund a lot of people who supported Donald Trump, who supported the insurrection, and who continue to deny that Joe Biden is the president. They don't want to keep. They're going to come after me this time, and I believe that I represent this district. And hopefully you will re-elect me. I have it in my mind, but I don't want to be wrong, so I don't want to say it.
My voice needs to be heard. I'm thoroughly disgusted that my government supports Israel and their socialism because they get single payer health care, they get free health care. This is not anti-Semitic. This is maybe a little anti-Zionist. But the other thing I'm disgusted by is that my government is buying, building, shipping the bombs that are destroying the lives, the livelihoods. If the IDF and the Mossad could get Hamas, they would have. This is not about getting Hamas. This is about destroying people. Israel is shooting in a barrel. 2 million people. They're destroying homes. They're killing. Journalists are locked in.
No, thank you. Thank you. I haven't seen the video that I just released maybe homes and schools have been destroyed. And the bombing of refugee camps, it's horrific. And we'll just keep fighting on it. I want to keep going because there are a couple more people. Thank you so much.
2 more minutes, so we'll.
2 more minutes. Okay, so fast. Everybody ask their questions. I'm going to take quick notes and then I'll give it quick. Yes, everybody can speak very.
Sounds good. My name is Don Goodwin. I am a pale male.
Are you scale?
I'm not scale, but pale. So as a quick, I'm concerned in Seattle with the violence and the property crime that we have. I think a lot of law-abiding citizens are buying weapons, and I'm concerned about that. Also with paying for student debt, I don't know why we don't, I graduated from high school in 1974. I could not afford to go to college. It was $30,000 a year to go to college at Seattle University. Why has college gotten so expensive? Also make it so people can...
Oh my gosh, you're asking me 4 questions.
Yeah, and also make it so that people, high school students, when they graduate, can get right into AmeriCorps or the Peace Corps so they can learn and earn some kind of college stipend. And that way, also make it so that when we get people that are teachers or nurses or something, that their college education be paid for every year they work in that field in a different state.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to answer all of these.
Hi, my name is Katie Bedell. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate so much you calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. That has felt so reassuring to me knowing I have at least one representative. And I'm curious how you will continue to fight for a free Palestine even after a ceasefire.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks. I have a question and a request. My question is first, I'm an Indian American, naturalized, just like you. I came to the U.S. when I was 16. What are you doing about removing country of origin quotas in the immigration system and making a system free from biases based on where you were born? And then my request, I have a friend of mine who is naturalizing in a few months. I was wondering if you'd be willing to do a quick 2-minute recorded video just congratulating him, wishing him well, and talking a little bit about what citizenship means to you.
Great, thank you. Tell me your name.
Arjun.
Thank you.
I'm Jeremy. I'm also a member of the Debt Collective and wanted you to know that we sent you, your office, a letter that we're asking you to sign. Perhaps you're familiar with it, or should I sum it up?
I don't know. Just maybe give it to them just to make sure we have it.
It's an email.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We're just asking you to sign on to the letter.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, we got through all of the questions. Okay, so here are my quick answers. So John, you asked a lot of questions, but let me try. On crime and weapons, yes, I agree with you. We need public safety that protects the safety of everyone. I think at the root cause of this is we need to help people be able to get the supports they need, the mental health supports they need, the education, jobs, all of the things that allow people to feel like they're not going to turn to violence. I also think we need serious gun reforms. They can't just be at the state level. We've done a good job at the state level, but it's got to be federal because you can just bring stuff in across the state lines. So those are all things that I have been championing and working on. On college affordability, I'll just say that it used to be that the state and federal together paid about 70% of a 4-year education in Washington State, just like 10, 15 years ago. Today, it's more like 30%. And so the cost has increased dramatically, both because of, well, there are all kinds of factors for it, but a lot of it is the disinvestment of the federal government in the educational system. And that's why my College for All bill actually invests state and federal dollars to make sure that we're providing that education for free, but also providing resources and supports to teachers and educational professionals within the system. We have a climate core that we created in the Inflation Reduction Act. So this is exactly what you're talking about. And also we do have loan forgiveness, public loan forgiveness program for people who go into the public sector as teachers, doctors, etc. We forgive that right now. Trump had stopped that, Biden restarted it. So again, these are some of the programs that you may be eligible for right now. I desperately want a Palestine where people have safety, security, and self-determination, and that they are free to live as human beings, just as any of us would want to do anywhere, just as Israelis want to do as well. Part of my problem with the way we've been approaching this whole situation is that nobody's even talking about the day after. Netanyahu, in fact, is saying that he doesn't believe in a two-state solution. There is no conversation happening about that durable peace. Instead, it's all focused on the military action, and I think that is wrong, as you've heard over and over again tonight. Our true country of origin, this is a huge issue, and what he's talking about is we have very biased immigration laws right now, and it is determined by we have something called per country caps. And so these caps are set, but they're set as not as percentages. So in other words, one country that has a very small population might have a per country cap that's actually huge compared to their population. But you look at India that has, 1 billion people, and the per country cap is tiny. So that's why if you look at the backlogs in family visas, for example, if you're from India, you might have to wait 20 years for an adult child to come into the country. And so these are really big issues. We've been working on visa recapture, which would help. We've been working on a number of other things. That's all part of our comprehensive immigration reform plan. But right now, nobody's talking about changing those per country caps. That is in our comprehensive immigration reform bill that Joe Biden put on the table when he became president. We'll continue to do that. I'd love to try and do the video for your friend who's a naturalized citizen. So talk to my team and we'll see if we can make that happen. Jeremy will take a look at your letter. Often people say, why haven't you sponsored this bill or signed this letter? We get thousands of things coming to us. So Peter knows this, he's so good about it. They always flag for us, this is something you might want to sign, this is a bill you might want to co-sponsor, because we really rely on you to make sure to tell us what we should be paying attention to in case it slips in the thousands and thousands of things that come at us. So with that, we have spent a wonderful evening together. I really want to thank you for your commitment to democracy. We will do some pictures up here if you want. This will be a quick picture line, so we won't do long conversations, but if you want to get a picture, come on up and the team will lead you through it. But most of all, thank you for electing me to